For the average American to get an updated COVID vaccine. On Friday, a CDC advisory panel unanimously recommended limiting the COVID shot to people 65 and older or those with underlying health conditions. This days after the former CDC chief medical officer, Dr. Deborah Howry, warned Congress about changes in the agency's decision-making process.
I resigned because CDC leaders were reduced to rubber stamps, supporting policies not based in science, and putting American lives at risk. Secretary Kennedy censored CDC science, politicized its processes, and stripped leaders of independence.
Former CDC medical officer Dr. Deborah Howry joins you right now. Again, she resigned from her post on August 28th, and I'm glad you're here. So the question out of the gate, if these recommendations, if cleared by acting CDC Director Jim O'Neill, narrows the agency's earlier stance calling for the COVID vaccine to be available for everyone 6 months and older. What's your reaction to this decision and the panel that has been put together by HHS Secretary RFK Jr.?
So this makes it harder for everyday Americans to get a COVID shot. You know, now they're talking about shared decision making, and we don't know how that will be implemented by each state. It might require a prescription. We're hearing it likely won't, but it's difficult to know that. The panel itself, I was disappointed in. On day 2, they even said they were rookies. The people who are deciding vaccine policy in the United States should not be rookies.
When you think about the childhood vaccine schedule, it seems to be top of mind for RFK Jr. So listen to ousted CDC Director Susan Menard's recounting of a conversation that she had with Kennedy on this topic.
We got into an exchange where I had suggested that I would be open to changing childhood vaccine schedules if the evidence or science were supportive. And he responded that there was no science or evidence associated with the childhood vaccine schedule.
So one day after Menard's testimony, the panel made their first childhood vaccine edit. They voted 8-3 to recommend skipping the combination MMRV, measles, mumps, rubella, and chickenpox vaccine. And that is given to about 15% of children. So what are the potential implications of this? Can they still be given effectively as individual vaccines? Any restrictions on that?
So no restrictions on it being given as individual. You can still get MMR in one arm and varicella in the other. But what is different is parents are no longer trusted to make the decision for if you're under age 4. You can only get the 2 separate vaccines. And so essentially, this group who wanted less jabs for children is giving more jabs for children.
That's extraordinary. So on Wednesday, you issued this warning about rolling back the vaccine mandates. Let's watch this.
We're already beginning to see that as we're seeing childhood vaccination rates decrease. For example, measles is down to about 92.8%. That leaves over 200,000 kids now at risk for measles. So we are at risk for measles outbreaks. And for the next type of pandemic, a novel pathogen.
Which begs this question, is the U.S. prepared for another pandemic?
You know, a year ago, we were. CDC had learned so much about the COVID pandemic and had increased data timeliness and ready responders. But now we are not getting the same global samples on things like flu or COVID, and we have less staff prepared to respond. So my concern is we're not ready.
So when you look big picture here, this new CDC that's taking shape under RFK Jr., what are your biggest concerns for the future of America's health? And to what extent does the quality of America's health actually ricochet around the world?
So just looking at changes to the website this week, I was concerned. They already changed the About Us website, and it has things in there about policies on like immigration, people who are unhoused, that should not be on a scientific website. And the social media channel was tweeting out misinformation yesterday from CDC. This should not be happening from a data-driven, science-based agency. Americans need to be able to rely on CDC, and I'm worried that we can't trust it.
When you said something's been tweeted out that is misinformation, like what? Can you give an example?
Yeah, so they gave an example yesterday of a myocarditis study from 4 years ago in another country saying people were dying from myocarditis. And certainly there were some people that died from myocarditis in that other country. But the way that it was framed really put it out of context, particularly when we're not seeing that with the latest COVID vaccines.